Everything he is today, I did not imagine because of what I was being told from these doctors or nurses.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kim Headley.
And my name is Maeve Gainey. Welcome to Life on Film, a presentation of the National March for Life in Canada. Tonight's film feature is Vito Man. We have the great pleasure of interviewing Jack Fabrizio, the director of the film. Jack, thank you so much for joining us today. And before we jump into the interview, let's roll the clip.
Hey boys, you start first. You know, I'm gonna get Vivi a plate.
Let's go for a hoodie. Let's go. December 13th.
So Vito is our second born little boy that we welcomed in February 2021. And we'd like to describe him as a little guy that we absolutely wanted. And he was definitely the biggest surprise.
He's our sense of joy, and everyone loves him. He makes everyone smile. He's, I think, a lot of people's source of happiness.
So Vito was born with trisomy 21, which is a genetic condition, which is one of the most common in the world. Vito has 3 copies of the 21st chromosome in all of his cells.
We just try to raise him like a little boy. There's some things that we do have to treat a little different, but for the most part, like, we talk to him like we talk to Enzo. We try to do all the same things with all the kids.
The speech development, it does come a bit later. So we have to, teach him, work with him, start learning sign ourselves. I love Vito! He wants to talk, and he's saying partial words, and he's using his sign. But yeah, as you can hear right now, right? We have to decipher what he means by that.
Oh. What's wrong? Yes. You want me to sit down again? Okay, I'll sit back down. Okay, you can keep playing.
So he knows when it's time to eat and he wants to eat, he will go right to his high chair and he's like, it. Where are you gonna go now? No, we're gonna wait for food. And then when he's sitting and waiting, so we're trying to get him to understand that we're waiting and we like to call it squawking. When he does start doing the squawking, we're like, waiting, Vito, waiting, and then we're like, I want food, please. What a clinical practitioner will say about trisomy 21 is they're gonna have developmental delays. They're not gonna live as long. They're gonna have heart problems, digestion issues. Basically, one big issue, problem, defect. Instead of just letting Vito be, his own person growing inside of me, he was slapped with labels. It was not hopeful. So everything he is today, I did not imagine because of what I was being told from these doctors or nurses. The genetic counselor calls me and she's like, okay, I got those results and we got these other results and now you need to make a decision. And then I'm confused and I'm like, make a decision. She's like, yeah, because of how far along you are now, you only have a certain amount of time. And then it clicked. I was like, oh my goodness, these people are talking about termination. They're talking about termination. And I was like, oh no, we will not be, not at all. Oh my goodness, no. See, so I already had that mindset where it's like, my baby, I'm keeping the baby regardless. I decided to have kids, I'm having these kids. I went to survival mode, angry survival mode, to protect him. I was like, if these professionals don't think his life is worthy, I'm like, I need to fight like a mother, you know? Like, that's where my head went, yeah.
All kids should be raised like a kid. Give them all the luxuries of being a kid, all the fun things, and just keep it all the same. Everyone sees the joy that Vito brings. And every family will see that too.
Having Vito and going out into the world with him, I feel like I have this, like, that's gonna make me cry, like this really special life that I get to share with everybody, and I'm super proud of him. And I see, although we get, you know, the stares, we also get super big smiles and amazing stories from just random people in the public that come up to us and tell us how Down syndrome has touched them, and it's truly beautiful. I'm so proud. It was something so scary at first being pregnant, but like to have him now and to see what he's doing and how funny he is and how well he interacts. It's I'm super proud of it, and I guess privileged to be able to be with him in this life.
That clip truly sets the stage for what is not just a film, but a powerful message about life and family. We're excited to delve deeper into your journey with Vito Man.
So as mentioned, today we're joined here with Jack, the director of the film. Jack, I'm really curious to know what inspired you initially to tell Vito's story, and how did your personal connection as a relative to Vito influence this decision to bring this film to life?
So the idea came over the summer after my second year, or even might have even been earlier. It might have been even after my first year of my film program at Sheridan, and Vito was just beginning to hit certain milestones in his, in his baby life. First steps. He still doesn't speak, but first sounds, and it was getting very exciting. And I was also at the time learning about documentary and, the conventions and how to make a documentary. And I really thought about how incredible it would be to make a documentary about Vito, especially during the stage that he was in. But even more so, we all went through what Jess went through, his mother. We all went through that together, really. And so I thought it was definitely something that could make a fantastic documentary, because it was just it was a very difficult time. Not only did we live in, not only was it very difficult for Jessica with all the struggles she had at the hospital, but we were also living through a pandemic. And so she had to go through all those crazy lockdowns and all that in the midst of having a child with Down syndrome. And it was the first child, Vito was the first child with any sort of disability, really, in my immediate family or even my extended family. I grew up with, other kids with disabilities at school, but Vito was the first time it really hit home. Vito was the first person with a disability that was my flesh and blood. And so it was a big deal. It really put things into perspective, and it really made me think, man, I really gotta learn more about this, learn more about Down syndrome, because I really didn't know anything about it. And I remember I started shooting it kind of on my own on a little camera at like pasta dinners at Nonna's house, just shooting clips of Vito hanging out with his cousins and whatnot. And but at the time it was kind of aimless. I was just kind of gathering footage. I didn't know what to do with it. And I kind of put it on the back burner because I had no actual direction. And then, Sheridan, my third year at Sheridan came around. Our documentary Core One Productions came up, and I pitched it, and it got picked. And so I revived the idea, and yeah, that's kind of what inspired me, I'd say. The fact that he was the first person with a disability in my family, and him being a relative definitely made it, there was difficulties and privileges of him being a relative. It made a lot of the production a lot smoother, in the sense that like I wasn't speaking with a stranger or a stranger's family, and I didn't have to establish that connection. I already had that there. And so I was just talking with my family. But at the same time, I was asking questions that I'd never asked my family before. And it was, it would have been, in a way, it might have even been easier to ask a stranger those questions. But, it was a lot of very personal stuff. And so there was a lot of exploration of our situation in the Fabrizio family. I don't know. I've never asked Jessica any deep questions like that. And so, that was a little bit it wasn't a hurdle, but it was something like, it was interesting, I guess is the best way to put it. But being related to Vito was really lovely because he was already my buddy. And so, I could take a more participative approach to the documentary, putting myself in it. In a lot of the clips, you see me with Vito. And I think that was really a benefit. I wasn't just a camera crew watching this family, but I brought a camera crew and I interacted with my family. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's really beautiful. So at its core, Vito Man is a story about the triumph of life. What key message do you hope viewers take away after watching this film?
Exactly what the text at the end of the film said. There's a eugenicide happening right now, and it's been happening for a long time, and it's happening all around the world to different varying degrees around the world. My film pointed out 90% of children with Down syndrome are aborted in Canada. That is a little lower in the United States, around 80 to 85%. And it's a little higher in Nordic countries, with Denmark at around 98, France at about 95, 97, and Iceland with they've reached a full 100% abortion rate of babies with Down syndrome. And an extra chromosome shouldn't be a death sentence, like the end of the film said. That's the main message that I want taken away from my film.
Absolutely. I mean, I think those numbers are staggering and sobering in a lot of ways. It's really heartbreaking and disturbing to think that these beautiful children, these beautiful people who receive this diagnosis of Down syndrome, that their lives are ended out of fear, or perhaps out of a desire to maintain this sort of like standard of human being that we want to bring into the world. And it's such a heartbreaking statistic, especially when we know and love a lot of people with Down syndrome. They bring such immense joy to the world. Anyone who's met someone with Down syndrome, I'm sure they've had the same experience, that they're ultimately just such joyful people, and their existence is such a gift. So, I think the last scene where we see that those statistics displayed on screen is really, really disturbing and saddening. But it also leaves viewers with a sense of hope as well, that through the existence of Vito, through his life, we're able to use this as an example to others, that this isn't an existence of sadness and sorrow, and it's not an existence that's not worth bringing into the world. So I think his life is a strong, powerful example of this. So it certainly showcases the life of a boy with Down syndrome, the film, who overcomes lots of obstacles and finds joy in every moment. So I'm curious, how do you hope that this story challenges these societal preconceptions about individuals with Down syndrome, and what they can achieve and the quality of life that they can lead?
Oh yeah, I hope it completely flips it on its head. Jess, I always tell everyone there's a lot more footage that was not used. It was a 6 minute assignment, and so we made a 6 minute film. And I'm very happy with the 6 minute film. I'm more than happy with the 6 minute film we made. But there is a lot more. There was about an hour and a half plus of interview, and we covered a lot of stuff. And the film, the Vito Man film, does scrape the surface of some of the things Jess brought up, but we got really into how awful it was to get the diagnosis, and how she was, like she says in the film, she was dealt a problem card, and that Vito was just a big issue. He wasn't a boy that was about to be born. He wasn't a baby. And something Jess said at the premiere we had in January, we had a panel after the film on stage, and she said something really profound that, like, I don't know, it's heartbreaking. She said something she wished she heard was congratulations. And how sad is that? Like, any other person gives birth to a baby with a standard amount of chromosomes, and they're told congratulations. Jess's baby just had a minor genetic abnormality, and instead of congratulations, she would get even "I'm so sorry," or as if someone died, or like offering her their condolences. And that's just awful, because people think it's just this, like, it's a death sentence. Like I said at the end of the film, they think it's a death sentence, or it's like he's going to have the most miserable life in the world. And it's just not true. She was told he was going to have heart defects, all these issues, a plethora of issues. They give you a whole laundry list when you get the diagnosis, and he didn't. Vito gets sick like every other kid, and that's that. But he didn't have any heart issues. They got out of the hospital just fine. And yeah, I really hope the film shows that people with Down syndrome, it isn't a death sentence. And Vito's young, so the film doesn't really touch on this, but I've seen plenty of stories of how fulfilling a life with Down syndrome can be as an adult, as a grown-up child, and as an adult. My mom always talks so highly about this place she visited somewhere in the States, in the South. It's called the Beehive or something, and they hire people, differently abled people only. So people with autism, people with Down syndrome, all kinds of disabilities. And there's a lot of very grown up people with Down syndrome working there. One boy in particular, I can't remember his name. He's a fully grown man now, making money for himself. He's a completely functional member of society. Maybe he needs a little help from his mom, but he's a completely functional member of society. And I hope people learn that as well. Maybe I'll make Vito Man 2 when he's an adult, to show that side of it. But yeah, I hope people take away the fact that people with Down syndrome, they're going to be okay.
I appreciate you sharing all that. I think it truly is, this film is truly a testament to what life can look like with Down syndrome. And oftentimes, we watching the film, you're not going to be able to see, Vito. You mentioned potentially creating a Vito 2, where we get to see his adult life and the kind of things that he accomplishes. But I think there's such a beautiful depiction of Vito in this younger phase, just in this very innocent, childlike phase, because he is a child. And I think there's still so much joy even in those early stages as well. But certainly we can look forward to the beautiful life that he leads as well. Out of curiosity, having undertaken such a personal project, you did mention some of these things in terms of, asking questions that maybe you haven't previously been able to ask, especially with a family member, like having these very vulnerable discussions with someone that you love so deeply, I presume. And so I can imagine that was really difficult. But I'm curious to know how this experience has shaped your outlook as a filmmaker, and if you see yourself exploring similar themes in the future with this sort of documentary style film.
Vito Man is definitely emblematic of the filmmaker I want to be, and the filmmaker that and the type of film that I want to make in the future. Although I do believe that I am more of a drama filmmaker, more than a documentary filmmaker. But I feel like I did all right with Vito Man, and so it's definitely shown me that I don't need to be afraid of documentary as much. So it's definitely proven that I can make documentaries, and if I ever make another documentary, it's absolutely going to be up the same alley, same direction, promoting the same ideology and the same beliefs. Because I want all my films to touch on that. With my dramas, I want to tell stories that tell the same sort of message. Sorry, what else did you ask?
I was just wondering what some of the challenges were in terms of, the more personal sides of things that you with this film.
So first and foremost, I knew a lot of the questions were going to make Jess emotional because it's her child and because she loves him so much, but also because it was very traumatic. Like, she spoke about how she's not one to need or want to go to therapy, but she joked and said, like, people would probably tell me I should go to therapy after that, like after what they put her through, because it was it was insane. It was awful and insane. And so I knew, diving into that, she was open to it, but I knew it's a very personal thing. So there was that difficulty, but then also, it's her family, and every family deserves their privacy. And I was very self-conscious about that I was bringing this massive crew. Well, it wasn't a massive crew, but it was a pretty large crew into her home where her children, eat, sleep, play, where they all live together. And I was very conscious of that because I didn't want to be imposing. It was also Thanksgiving weekend, so they sacrificed their Thanksgiving Monday morning. We were there till the late afternoon, so they sacrificed most of their Thanksgiving Monday for the film. And I was very grateful of that, and I was very conscious of that because, if it was a stranger, the film would have been made because we both agree that it needs to be made. But with Jess, there was definitely a part of it. She definitely wanted the film to be made, absolutely. But a part of it was definitely also she was doing me a favor because she supports me in my filmmaking, and I was really grateful for that. And so the fact that she let me into her home with a crew like that was a very big deal to me. And that was probably the biggest difficulty that I was trying to portray earlier when I explained how, working with family was a little bit of a different hurdle. Yeah,
absolutely. I think when you're creating a film with people that you love and your close family members, I think it's challenging in a number of ways. There's definitely an increased level of vulnerability because, again, you're trying to convey this story in a way that still protects the identities and the innocence of those who you're portraying, especially Vito, and some of the other children that are you can see throughout the documentary. And then also trying to protect the vulnerabilities of Jessica and her husband. And so I think that's definitely a difficult road to take when you're trying to protect those that you love, while trying to also create a film that is true to the authentic story that you're trying to tell.
I'm glad you brought up Anthony. her husband. I haven't mentioned him enough today. It was also a very big deal that he invited me into his home. And Anthony, as you can tell in the film, opposites attract. Him and Jessica are very different people. Jessica is very good on camera, and she's very good in general socially. She's a very social, outgoing person. And Anthony is very quiet, very social too, but very quiet. And so having him get on camera and allowing me to probe into his experience of the whole thing, with some very, bringing up some very traumatic memories and some very deep questions. I was very grateful, especially with him, specifically because of his personality. So, definitely wanted to protect their vulnerability and then their sovereignty as a family.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned earlier, you touched on some of the varying abortion rates when it comes to the percentages. Again, we saw at the end of the film that in Canada, 90% of children diagnosed with Down syndrome are aborted in our country, which is, again, a heartbreaking statistic. What I find interesting, something that Jessica touched on in the film, was genetic testing. And as we're seeing an increase in women choosing to undergo genetic testing in their pregnancies as a routine procedure, we're also seeing an increase in abortion as a response to testing that is done with a positive result. So if there's a certain genetic anomaly that has been diagnosed, we're seeing an increase in women choosing abortion as a response to that positive test. But then, of course, there's women like Jessica who, regardless of what the test result is, will still choose life for their children. But there's also been an interesting phenomenon wherein a lot of this genetic testing has a high false positive rate as well. And so people are diagnosed, or women are receive this diagnosis of something like Down syndrome, for example, in their baby in utero. But then they choose life for their child anyways, and their child is born healthy. So I'm just curious how sort of this genetic testing concept perhaps played into the film to a certain degree. And I wonder if you've received any responses that have highlighted this phenomenon of genetic testing and how it's created this environment in which abortions are increasing through this increased knowledge prior to birth.
Yeah, I think genetic testing is a really, really weird realm because I spoke to Jess and I asked, why would someone test their baby for any other reason than to decide if they were going to terminate it? And she explained how, and it's like, I feel like we both feel like this could be a bit of a excuse, a bit of a facade, but one could argue like, oh, just like if you know your child is going to be a girl, you're going to prepare their bedroom a certain way as to opposed if they're going to be a boy. And you could prepare, if you find out they have Down syndrome, like, okay, well, what steps do we need to take? Do we need to invite someone into our home to help take care? Do we need to start, how would you're going to prepare for a child with Down syndrome differently than how you'd prepare for a child without? And that's on one hand, but on the other hand, you're exactly right. Testing has just resulted in an insane increase in abortions due to genetic anomalies. And Jess, after having Vito, she had a daughter. You see her in the film, Anna. She had Anna without getting tested at all. She didn't even want to know the gender of her baby because with Vito, she describes how it was so traumatic, and it all centered around the fact of knowing everything about Vito before he came out. And she's like, that's it. I don't even want to know his or her gender. I don't want to know nothing. I want to know nothing about this baby until it comes out, because just the whole concept of having all this knowledge about this child before it came out is what caused all the problems. And so she had Anna, had no idea. And it was a big deal because we were a family of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boys, grandchildren. My nonna finally got a girl. We were 6 boys in a row. And so it would have been exciting to find out what the sex was before birth, but we didn't. And so, yeah, she had her completely without getting tested. And that's how I want to have my children. And I know that's how many people are going to swear by, because it's, I don't know. I think testing is a big problem. And I think the whole concept of, like, Jess also mentioned how you can test to see, the genetic testing can help determine what nutrients you should be eating that would be best for your particular child. And so it could be, but I feel like that's a little bit blown out of proportion. I'm not a doctor, but I don't think it's resulted in a lot of attentiveness to the baby's needs, as opposed to just terminations, getting to it early. So it's not too late when you have your child with Down syndrome.
How has your personal connection to Vito shaped your resolve to challenge these deeply entrenched biases? About what broader impact do you hope Vito Man will have on the public to show that every life is valuable and that these children deserve to be born?
I've always been very pro-life, period, before Vito was even a thought. But Vito being my family member, obviously everyone wants to fight for their family more than anyone, right? You just have that innate desire to protect your own. But beyond that, Vito gave me a platform. Vito allowed me to speak about this issue because unfortunately, you can't just go around being pro-life without getting a lot of backlash. But when you have a baby cousin with Down syndrome, who faced termination, it's a lot harder for people to give you that resistance and give you that aggressive backlash, because of, they understand the connection between family, and 2, it's very hard. Even the most militant pro-abortion activists find it hard to advocate for eugenicide of a genetic abnormality. It's pretty hard to oppose that, even if you are completely pro-abortion across the board. So I'd say, yeah, him being family made me want to fight harder, but him being family gave me a platform and gave me a boost to be able to tell the story.
Thank you. It's kind of crazy to think that, when you have this personal connection to someone who could have been aborted if the circumstances were different. I don't think watching this film, anyone who has encountered that would consider Vito's life not worth living. I don't think anyone would have the bravery to suggest that he shouldn't be here. And I wonder, if only the doctors who were pressuring Jessica to have an abortion or to consider abortion in this instance. I wonder if they saw this film and they see this image of this beautiful young boy, how that would impact their own consciences, that this, should this child have been aborted? Should this child not have been here? And I don't think any of them would have had the courage to say that he should have been killed.
And the problem is they do such a fantastic job of scaring the heck out of parents, out of young parents, that they themselves don't see how infrequent the laundry list of issues are. They themselves don't see that, most babies with Down syndrome don't have heart defects. And if they do, we should help them, just like any child can have a heart defect. You don't need a genetic abnormality to have a heart defect or a cleft lip or or to be born without a finger or something like that. Like it's they do a very good job of scaring parents, and so they themselves have no idea what a child's life with Down syndrome actually looks like. And so I think maybe my film would change some minds.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So now that we've had this opportunity to screen this film for our viewers through the National March for Life in Canada, I'm curious, for those who have joined us, who perhaps have family or friends who they would love to share the film with, or if they just want to rewatch this film on their own time, I'm curious how they can access and share this film after this screening.
Well, we agreed. I did speak with, I can't remember the name of the person I spoke with, but I spoke with a representative of, I think I was speaking through Dun Media about the Life on Film series, and I give complete permission for the Life on Film series to keep the film indefinitely on their channel. Eventually, I will also be probably posting it on my channel on YouTube, but if anyone's interested right after the stream to share it, watch it again, anything like that, it will be available on this YouTube channel until further notice.
Jack, thank you so much for joining us today to talk about Vito Man, and thanks to all of our viewers for tuning in from home. We hope to see you all at the next Life on Film screening presented by March for Life Canada. For updates on our schedule of events and to see our lineup of Life on Film screenings, be sure to visit marchforlife.ca. Have a good night, everyone, and God bless.